The NHL Trade Deadline is just a few days away, and Calgary Flames trade rumors have hit another level. We have rumblings of a new trade target from the Boston Bruins for the Flames, more word on Rasmus Andersson's future, and a massive Elliotte Friedman report, all leading up to Friday. Strap in because this video is a crazy one. We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. Before we get into the crazy trade talk, we got to talk about last night's game, or I guess yesterday's game, since it was a bit of an early one. In case you missed it, the Flames, of course, continuing their awfully brutal road trip. Started out great against Washington, was horrendous over in the state of Florida against the Bolts and the Cats. But of course, they played the Carolina Hurricanes yesterday on Sunday, and the Flames did pick up a point. They finally scored a goal, their first goal in, I believe, 8 periods. Nazem Kadri got a goal. It was kind of a 5-on-3, 5-on-4, I guess officially it goes down as a 5-on-4 power play goal, but really there were only 3 Canes down in the zone. But either way, a goal's a goal. We'll take it. The Flames finally got one, and we're not able to finish this one off in overtime. The Canes, they seem to have a little bit more energy towards the end of the game, which makes sense. Flames obviously on a back-to-back on the road. That is quite tough when you include the travel day. But if we get into the box score here, Dustin Wolf, once again, not picking up the win, which is really too bad. Gives up 2 goals on 33 shots, so still had a good game statistically. .939 save percentage, 1.90 goals against average. He played really well, made some really good saves, but unfortunately, because the offense is so dry right now, it was not enough to win the game. If we get into the skaters on the score sheet, Kadri, like I said, got the goal. Huberdeau and Weegar, kind of the vets, just really coming together and getting it done on the man advantage, but unfortunately the one goal was not enough. Now, the one goal was way more than they had in the last 2 games, so at least we can take that, but it is awful to see that the Flames are struggling this much. Where does that leave us in the standings? Well, the Flames actually, with the point, leaped into the second wildcard spot. They're in a tie on points with the Canucks. Same amount of games played now. The Flames have the upper edge with more regulation wins, although they do have less regulation or overtime wins, which is something to definitely take note of. They also just have more wins in total at 28 over Vancouver's 27. But St. Louis is really hot right now. Don't be shocked if they kind of edge out both Calgary and Vancouver, because Calgary and Vancouver seem to be, competing with each other to not make the playoffs. Well, guess what? At this rate, neither of them will. St. Louis playing really well. Utah making a late push as well. And even Anaheim playing well lately. So as of right now, 2 games remaining before the trade deadline. The 22 games remaining total. The Flames are in a playoff spot, but yikes, they really need to get the offense going. And who knows, maybe that could happen via a trade, which brings us to our next chapter, which of course is so many trade rumors. Because there was a new episode of the 32 Thoughts podcast released today, we have a plethora of tweets to go over, and the first 3 I'll show you here are all kind of going over what was said on the 32 Thoughts podcast about the Flames heading into the trade deadline, because there's honestly quite a bit to talk about. So, NHL Trade Alert, they tweeted out pretty much about every single team that was talked about, obviously, on the 32 Thoughts podcast, about what Friedman had to say, and this is what Friedman kind of had to say about the Flames. So, on Calgary, the plan is the plan. Of course, we all know Conroy's plan. We've heard it a million times. You hear it on every single Flames broadcast when they actually play. You hear it anytime you put on Sportsnet and they just so happen to be talking about, the Flames instead of talking about the Oilers or Leafs or someone else for once. But either way, the plan's the plan. Acquire, kind of some younger guys. But the vets aren't going anywhere unless a big offer comes in, which is interesting. Maybe they will go if a big offer comes in. Can always revisit that in the summer. Now, the vets being spoken about, mostly we mean Rasmus Andersson. There's rumblings of, Nazem Kadri, Blake Coleman, even Huberdeau, but this really does relate to Raz. They want their youngsters to play important games and want players to know team is moving forward. Yeah, they just want their players to know the team's moving forward. Names they might move. This is a big kind of, I guess, maybe the Flames will make some trades. Mira Manov, the man in the thumbnail, of course, and Joel Nacho Hanley. So those are the 2 names that Friedman actually did drop that the Flames really could be looking to move. Miramanov, it definitely seems like the Flames want to move him. Hanley, maybe they'll hang on to him. So Ryan Pike had this to tweet as well after the 32 Thoughts podcast went out. So Friedman himself on the pod said, I think they're trying to find a place for Miramanov, and that place is not within the Flames system. So maybe trading him away. Miro came over in the trade with Vegas for Noah Hannafin, if memory serves. So interesting that already a part could be moving. What could the Flames get for Miramanov? Not much, you would think. I mean, just based off what some of these other defensemen go for, the really good ones obviously go for a lot. That goes without saying. But a guy like Miramanov, I'm not too sure. The team wants their young players in important games for the rest of the season. So belief is they're going to be sticking to their plan, which means they are going to continue to try to make the playoffs this year. And if Conroy can add a little something that can give them a little boost, he probably will, which is very interesting overall. The last little, I guess, encompassing tweet, we have one from the win column here. So their notes from what Elliotte said was, staying the course, keeping veterans, but one phone call could change everything. If the Flames honestly get an offer they can't refuse, they very well could make a big trade here. And again, the key name you kind of allude to, read between the lines here, is Rasmus Andersson, but there could be some of those other guys that have value. Think of Kadri, for sure has some value remaining. Huberdeau, you look away from the contract, potentially. I don't think the Flames want to retain any of that. Like we said before, Blake Coleman potentially, maybe a reunion over in Tampa. You never know. Next point, Andersson is going to be equally as coveted in the summer compared to now. So if the Flames do not trade him now, his value will not decrease by the summer. Obviously, he can sign a new contract in the summer, and then maybe his value will be even more depending on the contract. We'll have to see. Next point, Hanley is going to be wanted by other teams, but they will probably keep him, which would be good if they want to make for a push for the playoffs. He's played really well lately. He even got on the score sheet not too long ago. He's been honestly the best partner for MacKenzie Weegar so far this year, so that does make sense. And the Flame also, they want to show veterans they are going for it. Don't want to upset the dressing room like they've done in previous years, so everyone kind of knows what's going on, and it's a lot cleaner of a trade deadline this year than last year. We can say that for sure. Now, the next thing, I kind of said in the intro of this video, but the Flames might have a new trade target from the Bruins. Here's a tweet from Anthony DeMarco. He's from Daily Faceoff. And he writes, sounds like the Flames have reached out on the Bruins defenseman Brandon Carlo. Teams have yet to dive into details, but Calgary is interested. Not too many players on Boston's roster not available for the right price. So it sounds like the Bruins are sellers. That's the first time they've been sellers in what seems like absolutely forever. But interesting to note that the Flames are going after Carlo. Definitely more of a defensive defenseman. We saw what happened to the Flames when Ball went down with an injury. It was scary yesterday, actually, in that game against the Canes, knowing that he could have been injured, but thankfully he was back on the bench for overtime and is completely okay, thank goodness. But interesting that they could be, going for Carlo here. Is that something you'd want the Flames to pursue? Would you like to pick up a guy like Carlo? Let me know down in the comments below. The last thing that I promised in the intro about this kind of trade season is about Rasmus Andersson and kind of more word on his future. So we have this little 2 screenshots here from an article on The Athletic, and it's mostly about Andersson here. So still, with 2 games remaining on a difficult road trip before the deadline, the Flames are clinging to a wildcard spot in the Western Conference. That makes it unlikely General Manager Craig Conroy does anything that diminishes his group's chances of getting in. And honestly, trading away Andersson does just that. Teams have called on right shot defenseman Rasmus Andersson, but unless someone steps up with an offer the Flames simply can't refuse in the days ahead, his future will likely be dealt with this summer, which either means a contract extension or, of course, kind of a blockbuster July trade. We'll have to see. Andersson's contract extends through 2025-26, so he's eligible to sign a new deal as of July 1st. Conroy, meanwhile, would love to add a young center who can grow with his group and has shown interest in Buffalo's. We'll censor that one because you guys make fun of me when I bring them up, among others. The GM continues to juggle the longer range picture with the immediate one and hopes to keep all hands on deck for the playoff chase. So interesting overall. Maybe Andersson could be leaving before the trade deadline. I would be shocked, truly shocked if that were the case. I honestly am starting to think that he will sign an extension, and I think if he isn't traded before the trade deadline, that's really what Conroy has in mind. But again, we'll see what happens overall. Very interesting. We'll all be keeping our eyes on what does happen with Andersson, of course. Let me know down below as well. Would you rather keep Andersson for the future or trade him away while he is at max value? Feel free to let me know down below. Now let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, as we love to do here on the channel. This one comes from the last video, kind of centered around Zane Parekh and just how insane he has been. This was a great comment here from Andy. Andy said 50 points in his last 20 games, almost 3 points per game with a couple sets of eye emojis. And that is bonkers for a defenseman to be putting up literally 2.5 points per game over 20 games. 50 points in 20 games. This kid is absolutely unreal. Personally, in my lifetime, I can't remember a time we had a prospect this good and one that we've been this excited about. But Insane Zane really does seem like the real deal. Fingers crossed. Full manifestation that translates to the NHL level, maybe as soon as next year. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe like you saw here today and have a wonderful rest of your day.